The first session today is entitled Mercy, Precursor of Unity. We will be hearing from 3 speakers and then a panel discussion. Our first speaker is Dr. Merve Kavakci-Islam. Dr. Kavakci-Islam is a lecturer of international relations at George Washington University. She was elected to the Turkish Parliament, the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, in 1999, but was prevented from serving her term because she wears a headscarf. Her political party was closed down and her Turkish citizenship was revoked, banning her from politics for a period of 5 years. She took her case to the European Court of Human Rights and won in 2007. Dr. Kavakci-Islam is a widely recognized international public figure and has addressed such distinguished bodies as the British Parliament House of Lords and the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. She gives lectures at prestigious universities in America, Europe, and Canada. Dr. Kavakci-Islam has received many awards and recognitions. For example, she has been named among the world's most influential 500 Muslims and among Women of Excellence by NAACP and GWU. She was awarded the Public Service Award in tribute and in recognition of efforts for the advancement of human rights and Muslim women's empowerment by the International Association for Women and Children. Dr. Kavakci-Islam holds a PhD in political science from Howard University, an MPA from Harvard University, and a BS in software engineering from the University of Texas. Prior to that, she attended the medical school of Ankara University, but was not permitted to continue because of the ban on headscarves. Among other accomplishments, Dr. Kavakci-Islam is the author of 6 books and numerous articles. She will be speaking today on Compassion in Action, My Life as a Muslim Woman Activist Scholar.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, As-salatu wassalamu ala Rasulina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be before you this morning. I am grateful to the organizers of this conference at this very important time for us as a nation, to build bridges and to alleviate the prejudices that we might have against one another. United we stand, one nation, one destiny, one human nation with one destiny. Many years ago, during an international conference, I witnessed something that got me thinking. I'd like to start sharing that anecdote with you. It was an international women's conference comprised of many of the leading figures and scholars from the Muslim world. And we were talking about the plight of the Ummah among ourselves. There were some of us who were representing the Orient in that conference. I was from Turkey, we had people from Middle East, from Far East Asia, and so forth. And then there were our Muslim sisters from the West. As the heated conversations took place, at some point, there was a loud, if you will, concurrence, a voice among some of the people at the pulpit, pointing at the West as the main reason behind the falling back of the Muslim world. The West, the Occident, the West, the West. And at some point, I remember some of the scholars from Great Britain, just having enough of that rhetoric, had to take the stage and ask, what is the West? Where is the West? We are the West. We are the Muslim West, they were saying, rightfully. Really, who were we? Who were we then, and who are we now? At least then, maybe to an extent, one can argue that there were the clear-cut borders that drove a wedge among us. We're talking about maybe 20 years ago. But now, more than ever, we're interconnected, we're interdependent, we're one nation. More than ever, one human nation, one body. As far as I am concerned, I'm both the East and the West, the Occident and the Orient, a worshipper of God, in submission, a Turkish American, my past and present, respectively. I'm a person who cannot take for granted what this very country offered me and my family, what this very country continues to offer me and my family. I cannot take for granted how God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, blessed me through the means of this country. The day I landed here, and here is Dallas, Texas, I had the shock of my life. Nobody was staring at me. Nobody was taking a second gaze at me. Nobody was noting the difference in my attire at the time. In my home country, was that the case? No. Is that the case now? No. Islamophobia reigned then, a Muslim country. And I know Turkey is not alone in that. We can throw in examples from Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, Jordan. I should not continue, shall I? Growing up in a very cosmopolitan capital, Ankara, it was part of the ordinary day to be stared at with condescending looks, if not verbally attacked, while walking at the city center or driving, which was then, 20-some years ago, just for the seculars. With your religious covering, you'd be only fitting in or expected to fit in the periphery, outskirts of the city where the abject untouchables lived. History repeated itself in my mother and me. In the name of Westernization, a Muslim country was ostracizing women who were committed to their religion through their attire, specifically their headscarf, hijab, niqab, whatever you'd like to call it. We needed to go, my father said. We just needed to go somewhere else. It's part of the Muslim tradition. We're not foreign to hijrah, moving from one place to another. You're persecuted, there's a new place for you to go, then you should go. Education was not optional in the family I grew up, based on Islamic tradition. It is a sine qua non. And therefore, in order to find a way to be educated, for me and for my two younger sisters, we needed to go. On a hot summer day in August, we landed to Texas, the place which has been my parents' home for the past 24 years. In the meantime, my second attempt to find my niche in Turkish Republic was a futile one with a high price. Becoming the first female parliamentarian with an Islamic headscarf was still unacceptable. It is still unacceptable. A blow on my face came with a series of persecutions resulting in the process that led me to European Court of Human Rights. Here I was, for the second time, leaving the place I was born, the one that I thought I belonged to, for the place I was valued, despite my appearance, and not harassed and not attacked. On the contrary, was embraced. United States of America, my home. How could I have taken this for granted? How could I have taken this for granted, the kind of freedom of expression this country values, prioritizes, cherishes, when in Turkey, Muslim women can be denied from health care because they wear a headscarf. They can be denied from presence in courtrooms to give testimony. Or as most of you know, they are denied from education or receiving driver's licenses. At the end, the fundamental human rights and civil liberties. 3 generations. My mother, an academic, a professor of German literature. I, a politician, had to pay the price. And now my daughters, who are graduate students here in the United States, who take United States as their home, the place that they were born, the place that embraced them, their mother, as they witnessed the kind of political persecution she had to go through, and their grandmother, the place where we found solace. We call this freedom of expression, a place where you're not judged based on your expression. There was a lesson, there's still, I believe, as an academic now, a lesson for Turkey to learn from United States of America, for Tunisia, that hopefully will be built up anew in the months to come, for Egypt, for Algeria, to learn from United States of America. I took part in voicing that lesson once I landed here. Then, of course, we know September 11 attacks hit, changed many things for many of us. For me, anti-Muslim sentiment became the new means to build the bridges, to take another duty on. We need those bridges. Let's look at the numbers, if you will. The numbers suggest to us that 89% of Muslim Americans rejected violent individual attacks on civilians, while this number is 71% among Christian Americans and 75% among Jewish Americans. Muslim Americans are many times ahead in their opposition to wars, for instance. Despite these numbers, Muslims face the Islamophobic behavior. Only 37% of Americans have a favorable opinion of Islam. Gallup tells us that 22% of Americans do not want a Muslim neighbor. 39% of Americans believe that Muslims should be required special IDs. At first, the last two numbers that I have presented might appear to be not too high. I would not be maybe that much concerned if these numbers belong to the society where identity politics from the get-go was denied, where human rights and civil liberties were not necessarily part of the construction of that society. But in the United States of America, where we not only allow, but also cherish, encourage identity politics. We not only tolerate the differences that we have here, but rather take this as a wealth of our nation here. These numbers are scary. Chicago Reporter stated that only in a district of the city metropolitan area of Chicago, Muslim businesses went down by almost 50% at the aftermath of September 11 attacks. A religion known for its commitment to peace is now somehow associated with violence. That's the reality. To attack that reality, to tackle the problematic, we must both look within and without. Yes, we must fight off the Janus-faced language of the media, of certain power hubs, utilizing this double standard language vis-a-vis Muslim. When certain attacks or killings take place, for example, the one that took place a few days ago in one of our cities at an IHOP, and the person happens to be from a tradition that is not related to Islam, immediately we would talk about some sort of a psychological difficulty, psychiatric problem that she was suffering from. We all hold our breath when something tragic occurs. Please God, let it not be a Muslim, right? We'll always talk about Muslim fundamentalism, Muslim violence, and now we use, of course, Muslim/Islamic, Islam, Islamist, all in a very interchangeable manner, which as an academic I find to be very detrimental to bridging those gaps. All words can substitute all other words, unfortunately, at this time in the platform of the media. But then again, we don't talk about other kinds of denominations associated with violence as much. Yes, that's a reality, and we can look for ways to deal with that and work towards eliminating that. But we must also look within to see how we can better represent our religion. I will, again, at the end of this final remarks, remind myself and you to take part in doing so. This conference will be, for me, part of that process. Thank you very much.